Washington, D.C. wasn't the only place with big crowds. Tens of thousands of people turned out today to participate in peaceful demonstrations in cities and towns from coast to coast. One of the largest gatherings is in New York City, and CBS's Meg Oliver is there tonight. Meg?
Nora, this crowd of thousands has been growing all day long. At one point, we found ourselves surrounded in a sea of protests along New York's famed Fifth Avenue. Protests with urgent cries to end police brutality. Hands up!
Today, thousands of peaceful protesters packed New York City.
It's enough. It's enough. It's enough.
Stephanie Ellis Gibbs brought her two daughters to march for police reform. She has faith the protests are working.
I'm feeling inspired.
13 days after Floyd's passing, the momentum continues to inspire thousands of protesters here in New York City, many of them calling to defund the police department.
Calls for police reforms echoed as thousands packed the steps of the Philadelphia Museum of Art.
What's his name?
Similar scenes played out coast to coast, from the Golden Gate Bridge to Chicago, where one estimate had crowds numbering 20,000. As protesters demand change in policing tactics, today in Buffalo, 2 police officers were charged with second-degree assault. On Thursday, Robert McCabe and Aaron Torgalski were caught on camera shoving 75-year-old Martin Gugino to the ground during a rally, where he hit his head and lay bleeding.
I implore the rank and file of the Buffalo Police Department to think about the oath they took when they were sworn in as police officers, and think about what they promised to do to protect our community.
In Seattle, the police department moved to protect protesters, banning the use of tear gas for the next month to disperse crowds. But some protesters say it's not enough.
They're in the hot seat right now because they're accountable to all these people who are out here.
Protesters have defied New York's 8 o'clock curfew for several days. Tonight will be another test. Meanwhile, those officers in Buffalo who are charged today have been suspended without pay. If convicted, Nora, they each face 7 years in prison.
Meg Oliver in New York City. Thank you, Meg.